Pledge of Allegiance is done. Good. Approval of the minutes.
Sir, can we do the roll call?
Oh, roll call, please.
Mr. Aristide? Ms. Cobalt? Here. Ms. Cohen? Mr. Each? Ms. Estime Irvin? Ms. Geimer? Here. Mr. McDermott?
Here.
Dr. Million?
Here.
Dr. Moise? Mr. Reynolds? Mr. Reynolds?
Here.
Mr. Robillard? Mr. Sanchez? We have quorum.
Okay. My apologies for being late. Where did we?
Approval of the minutes now.
Okay, for approval of the minutes. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, one comment. In the minutes, they have Mr. Aristide as absent at the last meeting when he was in fact here, so
Okay.
we can make a note of it and I'll have the transcriber make that change.
Okay.
I move to approve the minutes with the change.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Okay, compensation of new CRA executive director.
First, I'd like to welcome Mr. Larry Spring, our new city manager, and also as our new CRA executive director. In terms of when they were negotiating his agreement at the city side, there was supposed to be a stipend from the CRA for $20,000, and of course it has to come to the CRA board first
Right.
to be approved, to be included in Mr. Spring's contract as an addendum. So we are bringing it to you with obviously full staff recommendation to support his stipend of $20,000 as the CRA executive director.
Does this, what about the stipend that was going to the previous city manager? Does that change? Does that stay also? The interim city manager?
What, as his stipend as interim city manager would go away, but my understanding is because of the various supplemental services that the city is providing to the CRA, where the CRA is fiduciary, we do we do everything except for provide legal service. There are a number of employees on the staff that receive a stipend. It's already in your budget, and it's below I think the 10% administrative cap that the county has agreed in the CRA's budget. So those stipends will continue to go
So
to the various
stipend
staffs.
continues, is that right?
Or is that a
Well,
separate?
it's separate from the city managers.
Yeah.
It was
He was
'cause
getting
it's
it as the
other-
coordinator.
Is the coordinator,
coordinator.
okay.
With the
So his
CRA.
stipend continues and now, and this is an approval
Is that
for
right?
comp.
Okay. All right. Any other comments or questions?
Is the coordinator position he was the continuous coordinator of this year?
Well, it'll be once we do have everything established, I guess, by the actual CRA board, then Larry will go ahead and make whatever recommendations he wants on how he designates the work to be done. I know I'll still be a part of it from our discussions that Larry and I have had.
So at this point, we don't know precisely. So no, we don't know precisely at this point what his duties will be.
Well, there will be duties. I think you guys know over the next 60, 90 days, we are advancing the CRA plan through the county's process, and we've got to get that done. In speaking with the CRA board members, there's a number of expectations that they expect to be fulfilled, particularly now at the end of the year, plus as we continue through our next CRA cycle, most importantly, the development of the property adjacent here to City Hall. So, not joking, but seriously, I guess the compensation, and there'll probably be some permanent staff brought on as well. But I guess from our fiduciary perspective, I think you guys are getting the bargain from what I've seen from the other CRAs.
You know, I wasn't questioning that. I was thinking that I don't want to let Duke go anywhere because what he and his staff and Rasha did was remarkable. Like pulling us out of like whole and turning it around pretty fast. And I'm very impressed and very happy with the results. So I don't want him going anywhere, but right here.
Oh, well, I don't think, I think we all agree on that. I mean, we were in such bad shape and a bad hole, and it was himself, Duke, and Terry Henley, and Rasha, who really helped. The three of them really teamed up and really pulled us out of a deep hole and really got us on a straight and narrow, so to speak. So compliments to you guys. So I agree that we don't want these guys to go anywhere. We need them here to continue what they're doing.
And this is the first time I've ever been able to easily read a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
On what's going on in the organization.
Right. Yeah. Oh no. Yeah.
Well, I think the world knows now that it has been my intention to keep Mr. Sori on my staff as my deputy, which he is appointed. He has his permanent position in place, and we're actually working very diligently. So he will be here.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve the item? Do I have a second? Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right. The next item is the presentation of the fiscal year 14-15 CRA financial statements.
Before the auditor speaks, I wanted to put something on the record. This year, I guess this summer, I came in as finance director for the city proper, and one of the goals we had was to ensure that we got our financials and our external audit completed and issued by March 31st, both for the city and the CRA. Unfortunately, because of some uncontrollable hiccups on the city side, we're going to be about a month late. But I wanted to report to the board that these financial statements were completed and issued on March 24th, I think it was. So well ahead of the deadline, and probably the fastest that has occurred in 5 or 6 or 7 years. So kudos not only to the auditor, but the city's finance staff, Terry Henley, Rasha, Arthur. They were very involved, and there were some nuances that we had to work out in the details, but they did an excellent job. I want the board to know that.
Yes, they did. Okay.
Good day, everyone. My name is Roderick Harvey. I am the engagement partner. I also have with me Charles Dougal. He's a staff of the firm. We will be talking about the September 30, 2015 audit report that we have just issued. Our, if you will, talking points, we'll go over the purpose of the organization, board members, the audit opinion that we will be rendering or have rendered, a financial summary, which I always think is impactful. Where were we? Where did we end? And then we'll talk about the management letter comments, prior year, current year. Purpose of the organization, as you all know, is charged with the responsibility of eliminating conditions of blight that exist within the city and helping to improve the quality of life within the city. We've listed the
Just for the board members' purposes, the auditor does have a PowerPoint, which is so that you can follow along. Everybody may have to step away from the table and look at the 2 monitors at the front of the room here.
Okay.
Yeah, but you still need to move from there. Yeah, so.
Okay, so we will continue. We've listed, can everybody see?
No.
No?
Need to sit in
Have to step back.
Yeah.
Someone see here on this monitor,
Sit right there. Or go on. Exactly.
She can follow with that presentation.
Okay. You want to go
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead. Okay. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Rob.
Okay, very good. We are going to delve into the audit opinion. So for the period, again, September 30, 2015, we are rendering an unqualified opinion, which means that the financial statements are fairly presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, which in other words is a clean opinion. Now we will spend a few minutes looking at the comparison between the same period ended September 30, 14 and the period ended September 30, 15. We can see that cash increased from 2.2 million to 3.1, again ending in September 30, 15. Assets held for sale, stable. We look at the current liabilities. They decreased by 61,000, and our net position increased from 2.4 million to 3.4 million. Moving over to what I call the sexy statement, which is what people talk about for business purposes, your profit and loss or income statement. So we look at how did we collect our money in 2014 to the tune of 895,000, compared with the same period in 15, 1.4 million. Also, how did we expend our funds? When we look at how we expended funds in 2014, we expended to the tune of 1.1 million. As compared to the same period in 15, we expended 433,000. So for the current year, we can see that net position increased by 998,000, which has a direct impact on our year-end statement of assets or statement of position. And over to the side, you'll see the varying percentages. Okay, let me go back one. Okay. Again, we're looking at the budgetary process. Remember, your budget is done at the beginning of the year. What do we think would happen as compared to our audit results, what actually did happen? We can see that the original and the final budget is exactly the same. So we budgeted for revenue purposes. Well, I'm going to go line by line. For TIF purposes, we budgeted 925,000. We actually got in 1.4 million. Interest, very small number. We budgeted 3,000. We got in 406,000. From an expenditure standpoint, we can see we budgeted to expend 2.2. What did I say?
406,000.
4,600. I'm sorry. Leave those little numbers alone.
In interest?
Expenditures, we budgeted to expend 2.2 million. Actually only expended 108,000. Again, we can see we have a positive impact with our budgetary process on what we thought would happen and what actually happened. Moving forward to our prior year management findings, again, as the auditors, we have a duty to report on the findings that we gave in the prior year, follow up in the subsequent year. Management letter number 1 deals with payroll expenses, basically filing the appropriate forms with appropriate federal and state agencies. Remember, this was in 2014. When we followed up on this comment in the current year, it was implemented. So this is a comment that has now been cleaned up by staff. Again, a compliment to the staff of the CRA. Moving on to item or management letter comment 2, which dealt with weekly timesheets and authorization. This was a comment noted in 2014. When we followed up on this matter during our audit in 15, this matter was also resolved to our satisfaction. Again, a compliment to the staff of the CRA. Based on our audit for the current year, which I was involved in, very much so this year, we're proud to report no current year findings and no findings within any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. So again, the CRA has made great strides from the 2014 report to the current year report of 2015. With that being said, if the chair will allow, I will try to answer any questions or clarifications from anyone on the advisory committee. If I cannot answer, we will definitely follow up with you within 24 to 36 hours.
Okay, anybody have any questions?
I'm amazed that it's really something to be said about our CRA staff.
Yeah.
The reduction in expenses.
Well, this is basically what we talked about earlier. These guys did a terrific job. Absolutely. There's no questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
It's really nice to have an audit without a lot of findings. Okay, you know, about what we need to do here and what we need. So it's
Yes, sir.
It's refreshing from years past. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, first, yeah. So
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Okay. All right, I guess we're going to move on to the proposed legislation from Miami-Dade County Board of County Commissioners. Our attorney is going to report on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had Rasha hand out a document. It's entitled Memorandum, and it is dated March 17th, 2016. This is the proposed resolution, which is the legislation that was going in front of the, Economic Prosperity Committee. In order to have anything, just as a side note, approved by the Dade County Board of County Commissioners, it first must go through a committee process. So it goes to a committee, which is a group of 7 commissioners, and once, if and when it passes that committee by a majority vote, it moves on to the Board of County Commissioners. I will say I was at this meeting representing another CRA, North Miami Beach, in connection with their budget. I will tell you that they did not take action because they lost their quorum by the time this item came up. But there were a number of folks from other CRAs, including Rick Stouts of Florida City, who's their executive director, who were there and prepared to make some comments to the proposed legislation and some recommended alternatives. It is now scheduled again for the April meeting, which is April 14th, Thursday, April 14th. I would suggest that myself and someone from the CRA at least attend the meeting to monitor the proceedings. We can discuss going forward if there's any recommendations we may want to make to the county, either in public or through their staff as well. So basically, and there's a lot in here. I'll tell you, there's a lot of information in here. I encourage you to read through it because some of it is going to affect you directly. But I presume you recall the grand jury report that came out recently. And the grand jury report had at least a dozen recommendations that were made to the county and to the CRAs about, the way to handle things going down the road, greater transparency, greater accountability, items dealing with costs and training and oversight. And so one of the county commissioners, this is Daniela Levine-Cava, have seized on that report and had the county attorney's office prepare legislation embodying what the grand jury report had recommended. So what you'll see in here is a proposed resolution, and I'm sure you all are familiar with the resolutions perhaps that I draft or the city attorney drafts, and we'll usually have a number of whereas clauses. This one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.5 pages of whereas clauses about why this is all coming together now. And then when you get into the basic meat of the matter, which is on page 9, there are a number of requirements that CRAs will be placed on CRAs, those especially that are new CRAs, or CRAs that are amending their redevelopment plans and asking for extensions.
I guess.
So we're pretty much the first ones in the pipeline for that process. So these requirements, if approved by the full Board of County Commissioners, are going to be items that we are going to have to deal with and will be in our amendment to the interlocal agreement that's currently being drafted by the County Attorney's Office. So with that said, I mean, I'll just briefly go through a few of them and mention a couple concerns maybe, and I know staff has had some concerns over these things as well. And I'll just go down the list. What they want to have in your interlocal with respect to community benefits is when we have a contract with an entity or a contractor who's going to receive $200,000 or more from the CRA, in the form of a grant or just revenue from a contract that's not very well defined, they want to have a community benefits program. And essentially what that is they want to have folks who live and work in the CRA provide the services. So let's say you're going to give a grant of $250,000 to Pollo Tropical like we did. So they're going to want to have folks who live and work in the CRA or North Miami, it's not entirely clear, provide the construction work, be employees. I mean, I will tell you, we do this already. I mean, when we have our grants, and a lot of this has to do with grants, we require job creation, we require those folks to be from North Miami, we require reporting for the term of the grant, which is 6 years. So a lot of these things we already do. They're not going to affect us. But the issue with some of the language is it's kind of overbroad and it's not clear as to what they mean by contracts. Let's say you were paying my office, over $200,000 a year for legal services. Do I have to provide community benefit program at that point? Do I have to have lawyers who live and work in North Miami then providing the services? It's not entirely clear.
Steve, if construction company is hired to build the Pollo Tropical, do they have to certify that their workers are from North Miami?
No, in our particular case with the grant agreement, there was a job creation requirement, and that a certain number of folks who work there needed to be from North Miami. So,
but does this, could this be interpreted that even the construction of the money that's being spent,
yes,
part of construction?
yes, yeah. So it's
really
and so how do you tell a company who's saying, okay, well, I need your grant, okay, and I'm doing a $3 million project, and you're telling me how to run my business then, that I have to hire a construction company with a labor force from North Miami. I'll commit to create jobs for people from North Miami, which is what we required. So, in some respects, these may be not workable. In some respects, they may be. So, yeah.
Is it 100% of the employees from Miami, or 60%? Is that?
It doesn't define it.
There's no percentage.
There's no percentage there at the moment. The next section that deals with that on page 10 talks about, again, all entities or contractors contracting with or receiving a grant from a CRA of $200,000 or more have to, comply with certain Miami-Dade County ordinances, the Small Business Enterprise, Community Business Enterprises, Community Small Business Enterprises, and of course the Conflict of Interest and Code of Ethics ordinance. Again, it's not clear how this would be applied to a grantee like a Cafe Creme, for example, who's getting, let's say, over $200,000, how they have to comply with the CSBE requirement. In other words, they have to go out and hire a certain percentage of community small business enterprises. They have to comply with the Conflict of Interest and Code of Ethics, meaning that no one there could be someone here. I mean, it would have been a very difficult situation for this other grant. You couldn't just declare a conflict of interest. I don't think the conflict of interest and code of ethics of Dade County would have allowed Dr. Moisey's organization to receive the grant. Not that it was over 200,000, but let's say it was. Briefly, C, adoption of procurement requirements. We've already adopted the city's procurement requirements. So we've already done that, and we follow the city's procurement code. And if it's not in the city's code, we follow the state code. We're certainly not going to follow the county code. It's a lot more stringent. D is Inspector General review. We just heard our audit. We had an audit. So why would we need the county to do another audit? Some of this is just, and we're required by state statute to have Mr. Covington do an audit. So, you know, we're following the statute. So some of this seems to be like belts and suspenders. It's fine. Some of the concerns that other CRAs have is it's going to create more administrative costs and time of staff taken away from actual redevelopment projects to comply with, you know, additional reporting requirements. Page 11, E, required public hearing and project-related findings. That you have, when you're going to fund a project, you have to have a public hearing. You have to have a finding that the project will primarily benefit residents and business owners in the community, and that the entity or contractor requesting the funding has left nothing else on the table, that they've gone to all other entities, you know, to find their money, and that they can't get the money except for the CRA's money. So this becomes an issue. Like, let's say that the CRA is going to fund a city project. We're going to do a streetscape project for the city. So now the city has to go and say, okay, we've exhausted all our possible revenue sources, and but for getting the money from the CRA, you know, we can't do this project. I mean, it's almost, to me, unworkable, because the reason why the city would be asking the CRA to fund the streetscape project is because they want the CRA to fund the streetscape project. It's an alleviation of slum and blight. You know, so maybe there should be a carve-out for, you know, city projects, or, you know, the municipal projects. Recovery of grant funds, we do that. Our grant agreements are very sophisticated grant agreements compared to what I've seen in other CRAs. We have a default provision with probably a dozen different, you know, types of defaults, and it absolutely has a clawback that if you default, we want our money back. And we've done that on a couple occasions, and we've gotten the money back. That was something that the new staff, the second they got in, we looked at all the outstanding grant agreements, and there were folks who had gotten money or had money awarded who hadn't gotten it yet, and we clawed all that money back in. I think there was a few $100,000 that you all identified and that we were able to put back in the budget. The next few deal with affordable housing, which is something that was identified in the grand jury report as being very important. And, you know, this CRA in the past has had affordable housing projects. We did have a 1-for-1, which is what this required, that if you, it actually was in connection with Biscayne Landing. If you build 1 unit of market housing, you had to build 1 unit of affordable housing. This basically requires you to, if you demolish a property that is displacing individuals, number one, you help with the displacement. And understand, too, that there's federal requirements that if the CRA bought a piece of property that had people in it and then we wanted to demolish it, under federal law, we would have to spend money to help relocate them. So what most CRAs do is they will have a relocation, you know, program, but they will make the owner of the property have it vacant when they buy it, so that they don't fall into the federal requirement, which is probably a lot more, you know, cost intensive than what this would require. They want to have, you know, when you have a project that's going to be an affordable housing project, you know, a mix of the different income groups.
Okay.
Yes. You have a question?
Okay, letter K, limitation on the amount of tax increment to 50%.
Right, well, we haven't gotten there yet. I was gonna go, first of all, on J, which is something we've already discussed with the county in the context of our extension, which is having a county commissioner sit on the CRA board. That's already a resolution. There's three things that are already resolutions that are out there that have been previously adopted by the county commission. This is one of them. We fully expect to, have that as part of our new interlocal agreement. We maybe even have two, I think is what we're looking at. And that's helpful for us only because we want it to be an odd number so we don't have many ties. One of the issues, though, as we've had with this board, you all know, is getting a quorum. So once you put two county commissioners on your board and to have them show up every CRA board meeting to make your quorum may be difficult. They may not be available as often. So, one of the comments was, well, that's fine, let's have them on the board, but let's not need them there for quorum purposes. We don't want them holding up moving forward with, whatever business the CRA may have. The limitation on the amount of tax increment, as you know, a number of years ago, there was a state law that reduced it. It could be anywhere between, it used to be 95%, now it's between 50 and 95%, but no less than 95%. This proposal is if you're a new CRA, it should be 50%, and if it's going to go over that, you need a 2/3 vote of the county commission. Now, the plan that the CRA board has sent down to the county as far as our TIF arrangement going forward is still the 95%. So, we haven't been told yet whether this is something, first of all, whether the staff is going to support the county staff, number one, or number two, whether they're going to try and make us get a 2/3 vote if we're going to go for the 95%. Ethics training, this is one that would affect everyone sitting at this table. It's requiring 4 hours of ethics training to be conducted by the Miami-Dade Commission on Ethics and Public Trust for all CRA board members and their advisory boards. Okay, well, this would be,
For everybody.
It's for everybody, but it's also, it's every 2 years. It's not, you do it once and you don't do it again. Okay. That's fine. The cap on administrative costs, they want a 20% cap on its overall budget of 20%. From our standpoint, I don't think that's a problem at all. And those are the main things that this legislation requires. And I'll say, I don't think these are bad things. I think these are things that we're going to see in one form or another. Again, being the first CRA going through the extension process. The issue is whether or not this gets to the Board of County Commissioners and gets approved in this form before we get there with our interlocal. Again, I think some of the language could be a little, more definitive. But from my perspective, and I think staff's as well, even if this is not adopted by the time our amendment to the interlocal agreement goes forward, we will see these things in our agreement in one form or another. They will ask us to agree to them, and I think we've already spoken with RMA and with staff and myself, and we're willing to negotiate these things with the county. So I urge you to read through it. I mean, there's a lot of information there. We'll keep you informed as to what happens at the Economic Prosperity Committee on the 14th, and whether any changes are made, and how the Board of County Commissioners is going to react and vote on it as well. So it's a new day for CRAs in Miami-Dade County, and we'll see how the county commissioners react once they get it to the full board, if it gets there, and I presume it will. Anybody have any questions?
What time is the meeting on April 14th?
It usually starts at what, 2? So, we will, but we'll get you that information as to exactly when it's starting.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. Obviously I've dealt with the 3 largest CRAs in Miami-Dade County in my history, and I've both in the government side and as a developer on the outside. Some of these things, while they have aspirationally they sound and they look great, they present real serious financial impact to a business.
They're gonna jack up the cost of the project.
On a TIF agreement, like now the Overtown and Omni, they have some of this stuff in their offerings when they offer developers a TIF arrangement. In the case of the development that my team was working on, it added, if we wanted to get that TIF agreement, it was going to add $6 million in construction costs to our project. And we were coming to the table with $150 million project. So it's like, okay, and we already agreed to local hiring, 20% contracting, minority contracting, we on our own as a volunteer. And those things are in here. So, not that I can't speak for the advisory board or the board. I will have a conversation with Commissioner Akava, who's a old, long-time friend, about some of this, and educator, because I think some of what this is about her past as an advocate for social services and people, but helping her understand what may be the impact on some of these items. Not to say that, a lot of them are good. Some of them are tough. Like, our increment right now is low. You want to do an affordable housing deal, I can tell you right now, the CRA in Overtown gives out an average of $10 million per project. That's, we don't have that. We got 200 or, 200,000 or 300,000 to do projects. And then to say, all right, we'll be the smallest contributor, but we're going to add, the largest requirement, particularly on affordable housing, that has to get bond financing. You have to go through all of these hoops to actually get financed. So it's going to be, and I know they're going to probably weigh in on this because they're building in some of these areas. So that meeting is going to be very interesting, to say the least.
One of the things I find interesting is the county wants a designee or a commissioner on the board. In our case, it would be two. Now, should that person come from within the CRA district, a designee, or should that be us?
They're expecting the county commissioner
to be
for the area to sit on
so
the
that
board.
would be two.
So we'll have Sally
chairman
Heyman and the chairman.
Chairman, yeah.
Potentially.
Or their designee.
Or their designee.
And it's kind of
that one's been around for a while, because I know when they were renegotiating with Overtown, Miami Beach.
Yeah.
Actually, Bruno's on there.
Bruno's on the board.
So he's on there. When they were negotiating with Overtown, Commissioner Edmondson was vehement about getting on there. I think she compromised with some guaranteed funding of some particular projects in their plan. So it's a reality.
I don't have a problem with that per se. I'm just wondering if their designee should come from within the CRA district itself. It's up for grabs.
Language is not clear.
It's not clear, no.
Okay, any other questions from anybody?
All right, thank you.
All right, Mr. Executive Director.
I'm going to yield to Russia.
As you all know, by state statute, we're required to submit an annual report by March 31st, and we did our annual report for the fiscal year 14-15, and also our audit was done in time. We've posted it. It was in the Miami Herald. We already sent it to the state, the county. We've met our requirements. Just a brief overview. Again, apart from explaining what the CRA does and so on, it's more of an education to the community for them to understand what it is that we've done for the year. For 14-15, again, we focused a lot on the community inputs, the community meetings, to get feedback on what the plan should have been to extend the life of the CRA. So we were very successful in that. We were able to award several grants, and I also have some pictures. Like at the previous year, I don't think we even had pictures, but this time I was able to incorporate pictures of some capital projects that we did, the traffic circles that we had done, some facades for some businesses, and also the Cafe Creme business that we're bringing here. And also, we piloted the Y Green Matching Fund CRA grant program, and I have to say that a lot of our rehab grants that we've gotten, they've actually are using the Y Green as their match because they didn't realize that that was available to them. So Billy's Pub, for instance, is coming for next month for a complete rehab, and they are using Y Green to do their match, and then we'll do the aesthetic part of it and so on and so
Pretty
forth.
cool.
Yeah. So that was one thing, and we have to toot our own horn because we came up with the idea, and now the Y Green entity is marketing it everywhere because they didn't realize that it's a great marketing tool for CRAs to use it as a matching for businesses. So instead of using your personal loans, line of credit, and so on, you can use the Y Green program to cover a lot of these costs, the impact windows, AC, roofing, and then you would come to us to do the aesthetics, the signs, the landscaping, the other, wall, electrical, and all the other stuff that you need to get your business going. So that was a very, very wonderful thing. I think, Mr. Executive Director, we need to have them send us a letter, maybe for the file, because we are the first and only CRA that piloted this program.
Duly noted.
I will make sure we get something in the record from them.
I don't
Yes,
know,
sir.
I will waste time because most of you are already familiar with this process. I know there's a question with the property taxes, just to do the property taxes. For
The
Y
way
Green.
it is, the Y Green is a financing. It's an alternative. Instead of getting a personal loan, you're getting a loan, and what they're doing is, and actually it came by state statute. It's the PACE program. It came from the state legislature. Any improvements you do to your property, whether commercial, residential, they do condos as well, you can make all these improvements to your property, and you will put it on your property taxes. You pay on your property taxes however you choose the loan to be, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. You determine that. When they came to the city and when they come to all the municipalities, it's really a permission asking the municipality to have it put on your property taxes. For a residential, it's very good because once you do all these things, your property insurance will go down. I can testify to that. And also, again, when you do your taxes, you can do all of that, but it helps you pay and improve your property. It is still a loan. I tell people it's not a grant. It is still a loan that you have to pay, or you leave it with the house and the other person who buys it can get it. In terms for a business, again, you need new roof, you need new AC, impact windows, you remove those bars. Those are all qualified, and there's so many other things that if you look at the list of eligible things that it qualifies for, you can put the kitchen hood, gas, stoves. So if you're opening up a restaurant, there are certain things that you require that you need, it covers it. Anything for energy efficiency, hurricane preparedness, flooding. One last thing, which is if there's a defect in your house, sinkhole, cracks, anything like that, it automatically qualifies. The minimum requirements are you need to have paid your mortgage on time for 12 months. These are all by state statute. Pay your property taxes on time for 3 years, and have some equity. Your property cannot be upside down. After that, they tell you what the value of what your loan is, and you can use it. Okay? It's like I'm a poster for today. Huh?
Okay, we will get.
I just said you have to pay your taxes. Okay, and then lastly, Mr. Chair, Commander Page is going to give you a brief overview of a quarterly report on the CRA police officer.
Good evening. Major Robert Page from City of North Miami Police Department, and I help coordinate the off-duty detail for the CRA Downtown District. For everybody so we're on the same page, we basically patrol from 6th Ave to 10th Ave, from 126th Street down to 123 Street. So it's basically the downtown area and the parking lot surrounding the downtown area. This report went from December 16th through March 15th, and during that time frame, they made contact with 628 either business owners, managers, representatives, somebody inside the business they spoke to. In addition, they went by and they checked on 1,725 businesses, checked on the parking lots 1,211 times, and the most interesting fact was that they spoke to 2,150 people in the downtown area. That's visitors, people shopping, so they make that personal contact. and that was one of the highlights of the program so far, is that we've been able to slow the officers down. Instead of going from call to call or from assignment to assignment, they actually have quality time to spend on a more personal level with the businesses, visitors, and residents in that area. Some of the highlights, and it's on the second page of the report, but I'll just cover 2 or 3 of the highlights. One of the biggest highlights was at a bank, there was a person loitering between cars. The officer went up to him, checked him out. He actually came back as a registered sex offender that had a warrant out for his arrest. So we were able to take him off the streets. He really did say he was just kind of hanging out at the bank, but who knows what he was going to do, and that was at the Bank of America. So that's just one of the highlights of that extra care that the CRA officer can give to the downtown area. If you look at another highlight, they stopped a DUI motorist right here by City Hall, and they also picked up on a Bolo vehicle for somebody outside of City Hall for an aggravated assault that actually occurred in Miami-Dade County. They put it over the radio, and they were able to stop them. So they're an extra presence in that downtown area, because as Rasha was pointing out, the section below the highlights is the crime report, where we look at all the reports that were written within that CRA area. And I won't bore you by reading through all the crime reports, but every single one of the crime reports has something in common. They're what we call a careless act that basically took place. It was either somebody left something in their shopping cart and walked away, somebody left a cell phone on a counter, somebody left a back door to a business open and somebody walked in. Everything in there was preventable at some level if you read through the various crimes that occurred. And that's one of the things that the officers, when they patrol the CRA district, talk to the business owners and the visitors to the CRA, is that they're their own best defense for crime prevention. And part of the reason we established a CRA officer out there was to reduce the fear of crime, because the actual number of crime in the area is not that high, but the perception that crime goes on in the area was high. And they're trying to combat that through the interactions with the members of the community and the businesses. Overall, the CRA project so far has been extremely successful. I get phone calls, emails. As I walk around, people talk about it. The business at Subway is ecstatic about it. The Simon's business, and it's not on this report, but on the, I want to say the 28th, there was a fraud call in progress. The officer walked in, identified that it was fraudulent use because the guy had a stack of credit cards up and each one came back declined, and was able to take the person into custody right then and there. So that's just some of the stuff that goes on with the CRA officer. And there was a mention at the very bottom of the CRA report, there was an ongoing thing of an ATM scam. It was occurring at all the banks in the downtown area, where there's about a 10-second delay from where the ATM will close out if you walk away without hitting cancel or end. The person would watch you put your PIN in. As soon as you walked away, they would walk right up and do the next transaction. Some banks require you to re-enter your PIN. Other banks do not require you to re-enter your PIN if you get it within the 10-second window. So this had gone on a few times. The CRA officer had made contact with the bank manager, and through basically about a month of videotape, contact, and everything else, we were finally able to arrest the group of individuals that were doing that crime. So that was another thing that the CRA officer was a critical part in basically foiling that crime spree that was going on, for lack of better terms. And it's been very successful.
Yeah, it has been very successful. It's a great idea, and it's working well. Working well.
Any
So-
questions, comments? And we also got the new three-wheel Segway, which you can see pictured in the report.
Yeah, very nice.
We'll
Very
be
nice.
marking the three-wheel Segway with the CRA logo on the sides. So we will also advertise for the CRA as we're out there patrolling for the CRA.
Very nice.
So
Very
far,
nice.
we have one officer, right? One officer.
How it works is there's one officer, and it's rotated amongst. There's one officer out there from 9 to 2 in the morning hours, and then they come back from 5 to 10 during the week, and on the weekends from 6 to 2 in the morning, because there's more activity on the weekends. It's not the same officer, it's different officers, and at first there was some controversy around the station if we'd actually be able to fill all the shifts and who would want to work it. It's not a plush job. I can tell you right now, officers wait in line to work the CRA detail
Yes.
because it is a very rewarding job for both the community and for the officers. The officers really enjoy working the CRA, and we have no problems filling the CRA assignment.
Do you think one officer is enough for now?
One officer is enough for the corridor, which they go from 6th Ave to 10th Ave, from 126th to down 123rd. If you wanted to expand it to a different area, then there would be additional officers, because we developed that area so we could have the most visibility and get the most bang for our buck. But if we wanted to expand it to 7th Ave or somewhere else, then we would need an additional officer.
Well,
And possibly extending the hours would be something to consider for the next year too.
well, I think with the success that it's been on in downtown, I think expanding it to 7th Avenue and Biscayne would be great ideas. Great ideas.
That has actually been requested by one of the board members already.
Yeah,
To
we're
expand the
working on
7th
that.
Avenue.
For next fiscal year. Mr. Chair, I have two more things that are not on the agenda. Part of the promotion of the CRA and all its great work and the support that we're providing businesses, we're starting a new trend where we will have grand opening and grand reopening receptions and so on. And Captain Jim's just had recently, notified us that they scheduled their grand reopening for April 27th. So we are going to expect some invitations from their firm and so on. It's around 7 p.m. I just got most of the details, and we're compiling a list for them to send invitations to. So what we're going to try to do is, one, probably lump a lot of these, grand opening and reopenings together, or if not monthly, there will be a list for you to be aware of, so you can see firsthand the benefits of what you're working on. And secondly, thank you so much for those of you who have been coming to our community input meetings. Thank you so much. It was very informative. I was very happy and proud to see some of you between last week and today. We are going to have more meetings, and then we're going to work on a schedule, and we're going to do some more surveys. The only thing is we've gotten a lot of surveys from businesses, not a lot from the community aspect. And, the survey was on the link of the notice that we sent out to everybody. So I'm going to find another way to try to get some more input, because we just don't want to hear from businesses. We want to hear from the community and people outside of the city as to, and the whole concept, I know maybe you had missed, because you're frowning, you had missed some of the discussion, is for us to work on our marketing and branding and business attraction and getting feedback as to how do people perceive us, the investors, people outside, the residents, and, the look and the feel that you would like to see your downtown to look like, to bring in that additional investment. So that's what we're trying to gather. So we've gotten 75 business surveys, but the community survey still low. So we're gonna need to work a little bit more on that one.
I'm sorry. Wait.
No, I was just going to comment. I was at the meeting today, and I was going to tell Robert that one of the things that the business people hear a lot from the people who come, they're afraid to come to North Miami.
The perception of crime.
Perception of crime in North Miami is keeping them away. And what you're doing is helping,
Yes.
very much so.
Yeah. No, I think that, we have a new Chinatown on the west side. And that's one of the things that I was talking with Councilman Desilme this afternoon. I said, that's one of the things you need to do is implement what you did. And because it's really proved a success, and I think 7th Avenue, Biscayne Boulevard, I think, it's a great idea. Great idea. Okay.
Within the CRA, I brought this up before, and I know some of the CRAs were offering, I believe down in Miami, they were offering tax abatements and that type of thing.
They offer what are called TIF agreements, and typically what it is, and they follow the policy to limit them to 50% of the tax, the tax that the business or and they're not businesses, it's developments. They were offering them to large-scale developments. You're talking about condominium projects. There were a lot in the Omni area early on. The latest ones that were awarded were all the ones for the Miami World Center development, which is about, I think it's about 8 city blocks right in the middle of downtown Miami, so between 5th and about 12th Street, from Northeast 2nd to, I think it's like Northwest First Court or something like that. So the old arena, all of that stuff. What those agreements do, it provides for a rebate, if you will, and that's how the developers see them, but it's not really tax, it's TIF. They have separate legal definition. They're for a period of time, but you have to actually achieve the taxable value on the roll. Because there's been one, they did one for the Life Science Center that University of Miami built on 7th Avenue on 20th, and that one did not work out because they projected to hit an assessed value and never reached it.
Never reached
So
the
they never
assessed
got.
value.
They're not getting the money. So it's one of those. It could be a double-edged sword. So now
Yeah.
the developers who are doing them are very mindful. I know the team I worked with before. We actually met with the appraiser and we're like, okay, where do you think we're going to land based on X, Y, Z, A, B, C? And then start negotiating. All right, our number is lower. It'll be lower. World Center actually has an option to go, which is contrary to this agreement, to get 75%, depending on where they land. But they're trying to build a convention center. It's not just private development, shopping, things that bring a lot of excitement to the region, not just that particular area. Because I think you see some of the stuff. Well, downtown period, it drives stuff up here. So.
Mr. Chairman, just to add on to what the executive director was saying, Mr. Each, it's an agreement that allows you to promote development without having to put out money up front. So it's very effective. We've done TIF agreements. I've done them in other CRAs I represent. We just did one in North Miami Beach, which was interesting because it was for improvements in a city park for a soccer field and things that went with it that was done by Boca Juniors. So it was a P3 development. It was a public-private partnership. And then where the city was involved. And then there was another one we did for a mixed-use project, which was on the river. So it was, commercial, office, and we also had some, condominiums or rentals there. And so, yes, you set a value of how much tax this is going to generate, and if it hits that, you give back a percentage. And in North Miami Beach, they adopted program requirements that if you did like certain, you made the building like a LEED Silver, LEED Gold, LEED Platinum, you would get more of a rebate. Your amended plan allows for you to do TIF agreements. So if that's something that down the road there's a project that comes before you, the board could adopt guidelines, and we could also, and if we get the time we want, the 29 years, you're able to then give them a significant incentive to develop something within the CRA.
I wonder, obviously, we're not a very wealthy CRA. One of the things I did see up in Illinois in Bowmanville is that we had the tax abatements at the various government levels, the municipality, the county, school board, and what other governmental entities we had. I think up there we had the Parks District was separate, and that brought in an incredible amount of businesses, Fortune 500 companies, and they were there, and they had a tax abatement for 5 or 10 years, and I see how obviously New York State's doing the same thing. And we have a lot of overlap here. We have the CRA advisory, we have the Planning Commission, downtown redevelopment, and I think we should start looking at that. If we're going to look at our city, we should look at it in a holistic approach. And also with recruiting of outside entities, outside businesses. Our economic recruitment specialist was looking at very small businesses. Why not look at Fortune 500 companies and larger entities and start taking a long position, like say on 119th Street and Northwest 7th to 17th Avenue, which would be ripe for redevelopment if we worked hand in hand in conjunction with the. We know we're going to get the Gratney Expressway is going to come through. Let's think long term. Right now, we've had a tendency in the city since I've been here in 1970 to always think short term, not long term. And the Urban Land Institute had proposed think long term, where you work, live, and recreate in the same area. And I'm looking at 119th Street there, and I want to cry sometimes when I see the businesses to the that are there. And I know that Gratney is going to come through. And I'm thinking, well, okay, why don't we get the Metropolitan Expressway Authority or the Metro Data Expressway Authority to look at it and say, okay, let's make a transportation hub out there. and let's figure out a legal way that we can maybe buy some of that property out there through the Metropolitan Expressway Authority, sub it out like we do with the Airport Authority, and get some of the revenue back for the city and create a green belt out there. But let's look at some of these things instead of just in the short term. And you know, had possibly back in the 80s, our city council had a vision to look in the long term, we might not be in the position that we're in today. I see a lot of hope and a lot of potential here. I look at Northwest 7th Avenue, and when I go downtown, it's just horrendous to get on I-95. So I'm going to say 20 years from today, why not off of Northwest 7th Avenue? Why not have 20 and 30-story buildings off of I-95 between 119th and 143rd Street? That would be office plazas, and that would be condominiums out there. And so, oh, well, that's 7th Avenue. It's there for the taking. This happened all over the country. The Grand Concourse Expressway in New York, all over the country. Every major city I've been in, I see great projects going up, and we can do the same thing, because I know if I'm going to be living up in Broward County and I have to go down to Brickell every day, you go out of your mind. You're on that expressway for 2 hours. So why not have a shorter distance to travel? Or now, if we're going to get the light rail on Arch Creek Road and 127th to 125th Street, there's an ideal area right there to create a compact urban center. Where we could have high rises and people with disposable income. Look, the bottom line that I get, the CRA is wonderful. But if we're going to help people raise their income level and develop, you got to have a balance. You got to have people with disposable income as well as jobs. And if we don't have that, we have nothing. And that's what we have to look forward to. It's great to help a person buy a house, but we want to keep him in that house. And how do we keep him in that house? He has to have a job, an education, a social standing. And that's what we have to look at, the holistic approach. So getting back, we have 3 different boards in this city that overlap. And I think it might be good to have a workshop between all 3 of them with their grand plan. And quite frankly, this last 7-year plan that we did fell very, very short. Very, very short. I was really dismayed with it. Where I see a great deal of potential in this city where we could recreate and build new jobs and build new frontiers for this city. And I think that's something that we should look at. And us being here today speaks about our civic concern. And we're all concerned about the future of the city. And I just a suggestion that I throw out there at you. Thank you.
Duly noted.
Are you saying when you for mayor?
Yeah, right? That was
I'm retired. I'm just saying this as a citizen. I'm very happy with the mayor we have.
Under old business, Mary Urban asked to please be excused. Okay. Is there any other old business to come before us? Any new business?
I have one question. Does anyone know what's happened to Tri-Rail and the issues that were going on with the state regarding the downtown terminal? That's a pretty important thing for us.
I'm more familiar with their conversations with FEC. They're still trying to work something out to bring the station in, but they've been going back around the horn with the city of Miami to try to get the money, and I think there's some quiet talks going on to see if the city can come up with I don't know if it was 20 or 30 million that they needed to fund it. Well, I mean, when you look at the development that's going on right now, their tax, the Corps' tax base is probably going to triple again. When I was there from 03 to 11, the tax base tripled in size. So it went from like 13 to like $40 billion in taxable value, like in a blink of an eye. So they're still looking for it, but I think that's a plan regardless of what happens today. The station is being built right now, so I assume it'll happen. If not this phase, they'll catch it on the next one, but it's gonna happen. to your point, you know, the MPO, there's a lot of regional planning going on. It is 20-year projects. Arthur and I, when we talk about the capital plan that we're trying to develop for the city, we're not talking about what we're going to build now. You know, we're talking minimum 10 years out. So we are trying to think long term. The thing I would tell the advisory board to be mindful of is the CRA has a lot of tools in its toolbox, and the question is about being creative on how you pull them together. I had I've been blessed to have an experience to work with the Miami Port Tunnel and negotiate that deal, develop the CRA, and replan the CRA to include it so we could fund it. And you know that has a regional impact, a huge regional impact. And I hear we're getting ready to have our first Panamex boats that'll be coming into the port as a result of all of that stuff that happened. So look for us to use our tools that way. You know, we are on I-95. We're on the corridor. We're very close to Broward, so we can move about. Our CRA is out there. I agree with you. 7th Avenue is a place that we need to really start visioning better and looking for opportunities. Even some of our current issues may become, you know, 7th Avenue is a solution to some of those issues. But we want to work together. And again, I've worked with the CRA. I've seen through the CRA, the Beacon Council, and some of the incentives, you can encourage a business to come here and make great money. I've helped encouraged, they weren't in the CRA, but through the Beacon Council, I got a Scottish smoked fish manufacturer to relocate to Liberty City. And they sell their product in Abu Dhabi, in Ireland, in England, Asia, United States, the Caribbean, and it only took $250,000 to make it happen.
And rent is cheap too.
Yeah, the rent is cheap, and they were able to hire local. And all it took was $250,000.
Vision, and that's
Right. So,
And then to piggyback on the executive director, the plan that we just adopted has that. And, you know, like the motto they say is plan the work and work the plan. And I think one of the things that we lacked in the past is we always had a plan and we always put it on the sidewalk, on the side, on a shelf. And so on, like for instance, the downtown master plan is a perfect example. It was approved, we have a DPAC board, but we didn't start affecting the projects until the new CRA staff took over and so on. So, but to talk about Northwest 7th Avenue, apart from Chinatown that Ms. Geimer can talk about in the future, but we do intend to do a major corridor design master plan as well. So Northwest 7th Avenue, 6th Avenue, West Dixie, the same thing we did with the downtown master plan. We are going to do that also to make sure that that redevelopment you're talking about is done properly, and it's you know, it's a great concept, and the community's actually going to benefit from something beautiful and profitable.
When we did the 7-year plan, I don't want to be redundant. When we did the 7-year plan, the land use program, it left us a little bit shallow and shy.
You mean the comp plan?
Yeah, the comp
Okay.
plan. And the CRA, believe me, had nothing to do with that. No, the CRA did a good job. I am totally impressed, I think, and Mike, myself, and those members that have been here on the CRA a long time. It's like a rebirth. You know, I seen the light. and you guys, I think you guys have done a great job. And Larry, I wish you well, and thank you for being on board. And Duke, you did a great job, and I think collectively we're all proud to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, I really think
Or
that
did some CRA?
I think we have a great team in the city now, and I think there's nothing but good things to come. You know, so anyway, is there any other new business?
Dr. Minan had a question, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
I was asking.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Where's Dixie for? You're going to do the redevelopment? And
Well,
where's
no,
Dixie?
we're not doing the redevelopment, we're going to do a master plan.
Master plan. What
Yeah,
you
it is the West
What
Dixie,
part? What part?
all of West Dixie that's within the CRA.
Okay,
Chinatown quickly, is it a just an idea, or that's really going forward?
What? Well, I was going to answer what we've done. Legislatively, we have approved the designation of a geographic area. I've met with Rasha and our team internally. We're currently working through, well, we've appointed an advisory board, and we're going to be moving through a master plan streetscape design process that will, I guess, help create the physical vision of what the Chinatown will be, with gateways on either side, some streetscapes and things of that
Ms.
nature.
Cameron's on the board.
Yes, I know. You got your letter?
Yes, today.
And
What area would that cover?
it goes from 119th to
135th Street.
So
Northwest
it
7th
ends
Avenue.
at your doorstep.
Do we need Chinese? Are any Chinese there?
Can I ask you one question?
You can buy the Chinese.
Stuck with that name because of the resolution, does it have to be
She wants
China?
Asian Village, Asian Way,
Oh,
something
Can we go
Asian
to more Asian than
versus China.
I'd have to check back on. I'd have to
You
answer
have
that.
Filipino also.
Yeah.
Well, I can answer your question, Dr. Louise, and that is that there are currently major people who are buying up and looking at 7th Avenue right now that have never thought of 7th Avenue before, and it's only because of the designation of the Chinatown that they're now beginning to come in, and we're talking about serious people with serious money that have never thought about North Miami. As a matter of fact, one gentleman who was approached 2 years ago who said he would never come to North Miami because of the politics and because of the crime, okay, is now talking about looking at North Miami. So it really is something that stirred an energy. I know some people were against it, but it certainly has created an interest that wasn't there before.
Right now, this is my area.
Yeah.
I would love to be involved with this. Is the advisory panel finalized, or can you still squeeze in one more person on this?
I gotta speak with our planning department, but I think it was 3 city staff. It was a resident, a business owner on the corridor, and then our consult.
I think Beacon Council, FIU.
Beacon Council's on there. FIU, and then our consultants will be helping us. Our design consultants will be helping us with it. I will take it back to him to say that there's more interest from other business owners in the corridor, which I know you've been one for quite some time. So, but yeah. Oh, I think you're on here too. I thought you were on here. Oh yeah.
So anyway, any new business? Any other new business? Exciting times, ladies and gentlemen. Yep. So with that, do I hear a motion for adjournment? All in favor, say aye.
Petition. Okay. Yes, dear.
And good job.
Retiring?
Sorry.
Oh.
I'm a little tired.
Yeah, but you can't say redevelop it if you don't know what should go there and how it should go there. You don't want to mishmash things. You need to same thing we did with the downtown master plan. We're determining the uses, what should go there, colors, scheme, width, and the height, things like that.
A couple months ago about being. I didn't wait to get it. I went for the phone. She said that's $2.99.
You should have got a letter today.
That's small. Thank you, Paul. It's no fault. I was thinking that.
Oh, yeah.
Come up and
Yeah, you know, the problem with West Dixie is most properties, because of like how West Dixie cuts through the streets, you don't have the depth
Someone wants space
to
for
build up. You'd have to buy the property behind it, amass it, and so on. So those are the things that, you know, we need to look at and make sure that the plan, the master plan accounts for it. Do you know?
All I can say is drive around.
I'm Jeannie Gallegos. I heard your name many times.
Yes, I know.
Hey, Rasha, you know, I never got the notice about today's meeting. What email?
Marie sends it out and they posted it. I'll have to ask her to see if maybe it's stuck somewhere. But you got Adon did call, right? Adon called to.
Well, he called about tonight's meeting.
Yeah, to confirm.
He didn't say anything about the meeting this afternoon.
You mean the public input meeting?
Yeah.
We sent that like 2 weeks ago. It was a flyer that we sent out 2 weeks ago. You have spam? Am I in your spam, dude?
Right, correct.
I'll have to check.
Well, we're gonna come up with other dates and stuff, but it was very good. She was there on the first day.
But I appreciate it.
Right?
I
You
would
got the
make-
email? Okay, sorry. Yes.
I had a customer today
Uh-huh.
who wanted to know if there was property
Good.
that was going to be coming on.
I haven't seen you in a long time.
Because he was interested in building a shopping center.
So what you doing now?
So I talked to anybody
Oh, okay.
Myself and Sam Black from the Economic Development part of the county. We're a team because we have like a system that tells us exactly.
Yes, yes. Well, we have some people that are very, very interested in. I talked to a guy today from Malaysia
It's ridiculous.
who wants to